Now, back to the TLG Wind Power Hour.
Okay, we are back, and we've got Doug from WindBlue Power on the phone. Doug, you still with us?
Still here, Terry.
All right, awesome. Listen, on talking about the cases and stuff, and I'm not going to try to put you on the spot here, but I get questions that come in, to TLG in reference to WindBlue, and there's things that I see out there on the internet, and I know that WindBlue ends up getting a lot of bagging on them, and just like TLG does, and at some point, I think that we need to address some of those questions and stuff that are out there. And what I'm going to do is there's one site for a wind generator company that they bag really hard on WindBlue, and it's in reference to the same company that sells the Hornets and the SC series of alternators, who I've seen the inside of those things, and I'm pretty sure that you've probably seen the inside of them too.
Mm-hmm.
And, in reference to being bagged on, like that, the fact that they say that your alternators come from the salvage yard, and the reason why you paint your alternators is because they're junk, and you're polishing them up to make them pretty. Why don't you, since I know what it is, but why don't you tell people, what your thought is on being bagged on like that, and how your alternators are assembled?
Yeah, it's a pretty common theme in this, seems to be in this industry right now, is that, I take it if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. But some of the competitors out there think, well, if I can't beat them, I'll just bag on them, I'll just say bad things. And it's really quite comical when we see it, when we see, they're just using junk alternators from the junkyard. We live in a fairly small area of the community. I don't think there's enough junkyards around that would have enough to supply us. So we buy all new components. And some of them are from direct Delco OEM suppliers. So these are the same parts that you would buy on a brand-new Delco alternator you'd buy from a store. They're the same parts. We don't recycle parts. We don't go out and dig them up from the boneyards and put them in our parts. They're brand new. And I think a lot of that comes from, they say, well, they painted it. We paint the stator because it makes it look good. We want a product that not only performs but also looks good. But the other process of that is corrosion protection. And it's very similar to if a Ford complained to Chevy that, you guys paint your cars, so they must be all used, That's just ludicrous. And it's the same thing on our side. I guess we could say to them, well, you don't paint yours, so I guess they're going to rust kind of fast. So, it's really quite comical when we look at it. But we understand our customers and they're looking at that going, I wonder if they're painting it trying to hide something. But this is my acknowledgement to the nation that we are using all new components in our generators. Nothing has been recycled or taken out of a boneyard and put in our unit. It's all brand new.
Now, do you guys always use permanent magnets inside of your system?
Yes, we do. We always use permanent magnets in our generators.
Okay.
We've taken the original Delco design for the rotor fingers or rotor pole pieces, they call them. And the reason we did that was because we found those perform the best. The other company that you'd mentioned, the Hornet company, they use kind of a custom-made design that they came up with. And certainly it works, but it's not the best for cogging issues. Our Delco design by the engineers at GM who have made this design, we stuck with that particular design and modified it with our magnet because it performs the best. It gives us the best performance output, the strongest flux field of magnetism, plus it gives us the least amount of cogging. So that's why we stuck with that design, and it's worked for us flawlessly.
Okay, well, because in reference to, the reason why I asked the question about always using permanent magnets inside of them is on some of the lower series by the other company that tends to do the most of the bagging there. And this isn't I'm not wanting this to be a slam session against them. It's just, it boils down to, in the marketplace, people deserve to know the truth. And, anything that I'm saying here on my show, people can certainly look it up because it's not like it's just my opinion alone. My opinions are based on everything that I see and the general public. So when, in reference to like the magnets, I know that some of theirs are just the poles there that you call them are just magnetized. There isn't actually any magnets inside it. It's a piece of steel that has been magnetized.
Right. Yeah, and that's a very poor way of doing it. That particular piece of steel is going to lose magnetism over time, where a permanent magnet itself, a neodymium magnet, is magnetized for essentially forever in that case.
Right, as long as it doesn't get too hot. That's about
right.
the thing.
Yeah, there's certain environmental conditions that can reduce that.
Well, my opinion on this is, any intelligent person would be able to figure out that there's no possible way that you could get the kind of supply from a salvage yard that you would need in order to make the volume that you guys do. But in trying to tip the scale, and it goes back into I don't know if you heard one of my earlier shows, I talked about in this industry, the accuser is the abuser. Those that do the bagging are usually trying to hide something of theirs and try to make theirs sound better by making the better ones sound worse.
That's right, yeah.
And I can say that because, if anybody doubts what I've got to say here, I've got some Hornets out there, some SC series is out there in the shop. And, whenever you came to me to, have us design blades for your system, that was the initial conversations that I had with you was, that'll be great, but I don't even want to be associated with this type of product. So if this is what you're doing, no way. And I think that the relationship that TLG Wind Power has had between, your blades that you guys run on your WindBlue alternators and ours has been derived from a lot of honesty and research and some of the things that I have shared with you guys and you guys have shared with me in return, and we have been able to build WindBlue into a system that actually performs well in low wind and avoided the things that this other company does that I completely disagree with. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, that's pretty much how it's progressed. And honestly, we always look for improvements in our products, things that we can add. We have the AC output option on our generators, which none of the other ones have really went to as an exclusive. It's included on our unit. We've always tried to improve. We have a secret design that's coming out next week. You'll probably hear about it, but it's going to be a great improvement on our current design. So we're always forging forward with new things to make the product better. We're not just sitting out there trying to figure out, well, how can we say things bad about somebody else so they'll buy ours. So that's our focus is on the future and not on what somebody else is doing.
Right. Well, now some of the other things, other common questions is like, the TLG 500 that we sell here is a completely enclosed case. Your alternators are open-faced, okay? Some of the questions that, I've heard about that is in comparison, because what happens here, Doug, I'll just give you a reason why I'm going to ask you this question, is the TLG 500 is sometimes too big for the job. If somebody, like you mentioned, on the hunting cabin, they're only there on the weekends, it would be insane for them to spend $1,400 and buy a TLG 500 when your WindBlue unit will do the job just fine. So when I reference people over to, the TLG 500 is actually too big, why don't you give WindBlue a call and check out one of their systems, because I believe it's the right shoe for the foot. And what they end up, some of the questions are like, but theirs are open cases, and I don't know how that's going to hold up in the weather. Why don't you address, how do your units hold up in the weather, the fact that they've got open cases?
Yeah, I think that is a concern to some people. They look at it and go, well, gosh, it's just wide open up there. What's going on? The biggest thing you have to remember is these are under the hood of a car in normal operation as they would come out of a Delco factory before we modify them. And so they're open face in a car, and you get water splashing under there, and it's 400 degrees or 300 degrees under the hood of your car. They really get used and abused. And so the inside of the alternator is coated. The stator coil is dipped in varnish and baked on, and then once it's assembled, it's sprayed inside and out with a clear coat ceramic enamel. So it's basically the same as your car sitting out in the open. There's no brushes in this unit, so that's the biggest weakness you would have with water flushing in there, would be getting the brush surface dirty or corroded, but there aren't any. So there are no wear parts inside that can get corroded or worn out. So it's very similar to a car out in the rain. It's just not going to hurt it. You might get some water spots on it, certainly, but it's not going to just disintegrate.
Right.
Here's some music there, Terry.
Okay, so that means we're going to have to take a break, and we'll come back and we'll wrap up with